Welcome back to Historia the Podcast.
I'm Jamie.
I'm Kylie.
See, that was a pretty decent
We did it.
Introduction. Look at us go.
It's really hard for me not to like sing a word
Yeah.
in the beginning. I kind of did it, but not too bad. All right, we are back with Love Month.
Love Month.
Dun, 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 dun. And so we're going to continue talking about toxic, iconic, very, very loyal relationship.
The duo, the short duo.
Yeah. Chestnut and Bonbon. Also known as Bonnie and Clyde.
Ooh.
So if you didn't listen to part 1, I would go do that. It talks about kind of what led the two to each other. It was fate. It was an instant connection. Sparks flew. The rest was history.
A friend's house.
But what's going to happen when we have two people who love each other to an extreme end, ready to commit some crimes?
I feel like they loved each other, but they also, I feel like Clyde loved crime more, and Bonnie loved the idea of it being a movie more.
Yeah. There will be times where we'll see like they actually really had that love for each other. So today is going to be a good one. We're going to be talking about their crimes and all the fun things that led to their death. And their death. We're going to be talking about that as well.
Yay.
All right.
Oh.
Yay, death. Just kidding. Okay, so let's jump into part 2. So a few weeks after getting out of prison, the Barrow Gang drove through 24 states to do robberies of gas station, banks, and grocery stores. So they just had that instance. They were in prison. Now they're out. And so they were going from state to state, as many states as they could. And this would score them enough money to make it to the county line. So once they got to the county line, the cops couldn't follow them to a new state. Yeah. So that was their clever way of escaping.
That's actually pretty smart.
I know. So they were going places where they weren't known about to commit crimes. So they were going in these states that nobody knew of any of them.
That's smart.
They're smart. They would commit a crime, and then they would go as far as possible to get far away. So they would go to, like, they started out in Dallas, and then they went to Oklahoma, and then they went to Missouri, and then they went to Iowa, and then Indiana, and Ohio. So, and then that was just the beginning.
So they're, like, worming their way up.
Pretty much, yeah. Apparently, Clyde really liked the banks in Ohio for some reason.
What the fuck?
Or no, it was Iowa. He liked the Iowa ones.
That's still weird.
Yeah. So they once did a trip to New Mexico as well. And they enjoyed that area too, but they didn't go very far.
How many miles did they put on their cars? Jeez.
Well, that's why they just kept getting new ones. Kept stealing them. So Clyde knew how to study a map. He was good at that.
Huh.
I would not be able to. But he knew all the back roads, and that's really what helped them escape many times, was just being able to drive quickly and make a lot of turns. And he knew the path to do that. So he knew he was good at crime, and he never went a day without making money.
Yeah.
So he's like, I'm good at this. I'm just going to keep on going. Now, Ford introduced the iconic V8 engine. This was the most powerful car that had existed at that time. And cops were now ill-equipped for chasings. So now they had those in their cars. And so it was really hard to catch the couple because they would change cars and license plates frequently. So Clyde sees these new cars and he's like, all right, so I have to go on the search for those. That's what we need to escape.
Yeah.
So Clyde focused on stealing many cars a day. A lot of days he would steal like 5 cars and just go from car to car to car to car. So it's kind of like Grand Theft Auto. So he would find the best, most powerful cars. And Clyde would escape because of the Ford V8s. He could now go 90 miles per hour. And so they always let him drive because he was good at it. Like he was
experienced.
He was a speed racer. I'm Lightning. Lightning McQueen. And so he would turn a few times and then the cops would be like, fuck, where'd he go now? And they would just lose him. So he preferred to run instead of fight. That was always his mechanism. He's like, I'm just going to run away as far as I can go.
I mean,
he never wanted to fight. Right. And so he never wanted to like get in fights with people. He never wanted to hurt people. Mm-hmm. But if it came down to going to prison or defending himself, he's going to defend himself.
Yeah.
And so he was always prepared to fight if he needed to. He bought an automatic rifle with him, or he brought it with him on the road that was completely full of bullets. He was ready. And Clyde would steal a bunch of automatic rifles from where armed guards would be all over the United States. Not even cops had these types of weapons, so he knew that he'd be able to, go against them easily. So he would get automatic rifles for the whole gang. Everyone had at least a few of them. So police didn't have these rifles, so he was able to overpower them if it came down to it. Now, the Barrow Gang was always ready to outshoot the cops. They were always prepared, and Clyde would change quickly. Sometimes he would become more evil in areas where he'd be like, all right, we're going to shoot all the cops. Like, we're going to take them down. Other times he'd be like, guys, we can't do that unless they're, like, on our backs. And so he was kind of like, I think he always had this weird feeling about it morally. But he also knew, like, his
moral groundings were kind of all over the place.
He's in a life of crime. He can't really, like, you can't be, like, a little bit in.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Like, you have to be all in or all out.
Yeah.
So, the gang ended up killing 4 men from April 1932 to January 1933. So, Eugene Moore was one of them. He was a sheriff from Oklahoma. They gunned him down at a community dance. Doyle Johnson was shot in front of his family on Christmas when he was trying to stop Clyde from stealing his car, which is devastating. Poor family. Malcolm Davis was a deputy in Fort Worth killed by Clyde. He ended up shooting him. Now, because Clyde had killed someone of the law, he would have to face the electric chair if he was caught. And so he told his sister that it makes him sick to his stomach to think about how he killed someone. He was like, I feel bad, but I had to defend myself. He thinks he did what he had to do. But he also knows if he's caught, it's over for him.
Yeah.
At this point. Now, whatever stood between him and freedom was a goner. Because that's what he wanted. He wanted a life of freedom. So if anything stood in his way, bye. And so in 1933, the Barrow Gang was talked about in a bunch of different states. Finally, people start to catch on about, like, who's all involved and, like, where are they going? What's their path? And so they start becoming a little bit more well-known. But no matter what, Bonnie and Clyde made it a priority to see their families in Dallas. They were always so family-oriented that, like, nothing could stop them from returning home. And so Clyde's mom would have dinners with his whole big family and would invite Bonnie's family. So they became, like, friends with each other. And Bonnie's family would enjoy, like, just being able to hang out with them. It was cool that they, like, all kind of hung out in one spot. Bonnie would give her family money, which they very much needed during the Depression. And because, her mom never had any money besides when her dad was alive. And her mom tried to get Bonnie to give it all up. She's like, you need to just turn away from this. Like, this is not a good life for you. Like, she tried over and over and over again to get Bonnie to quit, to get away from Clyde. Like, she's like, you deserve better than this. You can have a better life. I can help you get there. Like, and of course, at this point, Bonnie's so sucked into it. She's already made a commitment to him. There's no turning back.
There's no.
But it just goes to show, like, it's not always about their childhood or, their parents. Like, some people...
Sometimes it's society itself.
Right. Yeah. And of course, they grew up in poverty, and maybe that has to do with it, but it's not so much like... Not every kid in poverty ends up being a criminal, you know? It was just like... Yeah, it was like what she saw around her that led to it. Clyde even told Bonnie to leave him. Like, he would be like, you have to leave me. Like, you have to let go of me. I love you, but, like, I don't want you to die too. Like, he tried to protect her in that way, but she was just like, no, it's okay. Like, I'll go down with you. Like, I'm ready for whatever happens to us. And so he even knew it was wrong. Bless you.
Excuse
me. Because he also knew that, like, if they caught him, they're not going to arrest her. They'd probably just let her go. But of course they're going to arrest him because he's the one that drives. He's the one that shoots.
Yeah.
So he knows that, like, she'd be okay at this point until, things start to get a little crazier and she does crazier things. So he's like, you need to leave. And she's like, nope, I'm staying here. So she stayed. She loved him so much, and she was always loyal. That was hard to say. Always loyal. So in spring 1933, there were 2 new travelers who joined the gang. Buck, which was Clyde's brother, who influenced him to this life.
Of course.
And his wife, Blanche. Right after Buck had been released from prison, he was granted a full pardon from the governor. And so, being on the run, cops were after Bonnie and Clyde for murder, bank robbery, auto theft, and robbing a bunch of grocery stores and gas stations. So, when Buck and Blanche kind of come back to them, they've already committed a bunch of crimes, basically.
Oh, great. They just added to the rap.
Yep, they added a lot to it. So, this was a few months of Bonnie and Clyde just going at it together, just the two of them. And then Jones was also still there.
Yeah.
he's kind of always
hanging in the
he's
back.
always, he's always like fifth wheeling. He's like, "Hi guys." And then Blanche and Buck were like, "Hey, we're here to hang out with you guys and help you out with whatever you need." And so this part is crazy to me because I was just in this place 2 months ago. Okay, anyway, let me get there. So they rented an apartment in Joplin, Missouri and stayed there with Buck and Blanche. I was just in Joplin for my friend's wedding because she lives there, and she never told me that they had an apartment there. She knew about this. I messaged her last night, and I was like, "Did you know that Bonnie and Clyde had an apartment in Joplin?" She's like, "Yeah, it's now an Airbnb."
Oh, no
And I was
way.
like, "Why didn't you tell me this?" Like, there's nothing to do in that town. It's so boring.
Yeah.
But they have all kinds of criminal history, and I'm like, "Oh my God, we could have gone to the freaking Airbnb." Anyway, it's just kind of interesting because that town is like a ghost town. Like, there's not much there.
I mean, most ghost towns are very small towns. We're booming back in like the
Yeah.
early 1900s, 1920s.
Especially like Prohibition and all that.
I mean, look at Cripple Creek.
Yeah,
It was
true.
such a booming town when the gold mine was like popping, but then when it started to kind of fizzle out, they just brought in the casinos.
Yeah. So next time I visit her, I'm going to stay at that Airbnb and I'll report back to you all.
Yeah,
It's probably really expensive.
Probably.
Because we'll get there. There was a shootout in front of it.
Oh.
So there's a lot of history in it.
There's probably some bullet holes in the front of the building.
Yeah, probably. That's why I think it'd be cool to see if there's any of that.
Yeah.
So they're staying at this apartment in Joplin. They're only there for a couple weeks, but Buck and Blanche are staying with them. And so they enjoy just kind of cooking, playing games, having a good time. They're all besties. And of course, Jones is with them.
Of course.
And they're there for 2 weeks to just kind of take a break from traveling and just kind of figure out what they're going to do next. Until... Oh, wait, I wasn't going to talk about that yet. I was just going to say, it's weird that they chose Joplin because there were a ton of cops around because of the bootleggers that were there. There were cops everywhere. So they were kind of just like living in this apartment, knowing that there's cops downstairs. And like, we'll be fine.
Wow.
And so the cops are kind of searching every apartment, every house, which would not lead to a good thing because we have April 13th when the local authorities investigated the apartment. And we had a guy named John Harrowman. He was a farmer and he was moonlighting as a part-time peace officer. And so he went with the cops to the house and they only had pistols and approached the house thinking it just had a couple of bootleggers. I didn't write this down, but if I can remember correctly, Blanche hears them knocking and says, "Hold on, let me get dressed." And then as she's saying that, Clyde takes that as an action of like, we got to figure out what to do. So he gets the rifles and he leads them all to the garage. And then they end up opening the garage and shooting from there.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So the Barrow Gang shoots like crazy. Harriman died and another officer lost his arm, just completely ripped off.
Oh, my God.
And he ended up dying a few hours later. The gang drove off quickly in a stolen V8.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. One of theirs. And they got away, but they left behind a ton of information in the apartment.
Oh.
They didn't take anything with them.
That's where they messed up.
Right. So obviously they could tell immediately who these people were. They left behind clothes, jewelry, weapons, and even some unprocessed film, which led to some very iconic photos that we still see today. I will be posting these on the Instagram.
Wow.
On the Instagram post, I think that was what I was trying to say. For this episode, I'm going to post these specific pictures. On the film, there were pictures of Bonnie holding Clyde at gunpoint and a picture of Bonnie leaning against a stolen car with a pistol in her hand and a cigar in her mouth.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, that one's pretty iconic, but it just kind of showed like she's not like usual women.
Yeah.
She's one of a kind. And then, yeah, the one where she has the gun to to Clyde's head. That one is also, yeah, very interesting. But so these pictures is what led to them becoming famous, because now you have these pictures of this couple. You know, Jones probably took these pictures of them, and in all the pictures they're holding guns, and they're like hugging each other, like he's like holding her in one of them. And so all these pictures are now released, and they're like, what is this couple?
Literally.
What is going on? And so it makes news. It spreads like rapid fire. There's pictures of her with the cigar and all that.
It's like she's not faking it. She's not pretending.
Right. Yeah. And so when she saw the picture of her with the cigar, she hated it. She always hated that picture.
Yeah.
But it ended up being one of the most well-known pictures of her.
Well, at that point, too, it's kind of realizing if she gets caught, she's getting arrested.
Right. Yeah. And so at this point, it's over for them. Like they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything ever again. Just run away, basically. On April 15th, like I said, that's when the pictures started becoming everywhere around the country. And they became a big symbol of defying authority and getting away with it. And so people were like, wow, they must really love each other being able to do that together. And people were like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. It's kind of like how we enjoy listening to true crime. Like it's a similar thing, but imagine it happening in real life. And it's like a mysterious couple. And it wasn't like you saw that back then. You know, you didn't hear about many things besides gangsters.
Exactly.
So this was something new. And they became huge, iconic outlaws after this. And in the apartment, they also found a poem by Bonnie titled The Story of Suicidal Sal. And it's like talking about someone who was like really sad and everything. It didn't really have to do with like her life. It was just a random poem she wrote. But then I don't know if it was in the apartment, but I know another well-known one was about Clyde. I think they might have found it there too, about like her love for him. And so I think that one was published as well. But this is exactly what America needed. They wanted drama, right? They're bored.
Yeah.
There's just sadness going on. And so they want the drama. They want the spice. They want the romance. Like this was it was really good timing in America. And so they were just infatuated by them. They're like, we have to find them. Like, not even to get the cops to catch them. We just want to be able to like see them up close.
Yeah.
How exciting. Like, if you want them to steal your car, okay. So after the Joplin incident, their fame brought too much attention to them and they couldn't go anywhere. They even had to like bathe in rivers and eat out of cans. Like they were basically just living out of their car.
Oh.
Not an ideal situation.
Nope.
But they're just trying to survive at this point. Not really thriving. Just surviving. That doesn't sound like a good life.
Just surviving.
Yeah. In June 1933, outside of Wellington, Texas, Clyde was driving way too fast. And basically there was like this road. He knows the road really well. And there's usually a bridge at the end that you cross. But unfortunately, the bridge was closed. And he didn't notice. So he was going like 90 miles per hour. Hits the... I don't know what it was, like something stopping them from going on the bridge.
Yeah.
Hits that and then flips the car over.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so the car catches fire. Now, he was thrown from the car, but Bonnie was trapped in the wreckage. So she's just in there like,
oh no.
Poor little Bon.
Oh, no.
Now, a family sees this because they live close by and they're like, oh my God, a car is on fire. And so they run over and they're like, oh no, what is happening? And then Clyde just gets up and because he's just like, I feel like he's like a cat that has like 9 lives. Yeah. He's like, oh, hey guys, can you help my girlfriend who's just like burning in the car?
Oh God.
Because he's like trying to like, get up and he's probably a little shooken up and like, obviously if you get thrown from a car, you can't just like get up and be like, yeah, it's fine.
Exactly.
So a family actually ended up going to the car and helping to free her. And her right leg was burnt completely.
Oof.
And so they actually got some baking powder and they were rubbing that in with grease, which actually helped her leg she didn't lose her leg.
Wow.
Yeah. So they kind of knew what to do. So luckily that family was there.
Yeah.
Now, she is now a cripple for the rest of her life. She can't walk ever again.
Yeah.
So you get a guy with a limp and a cripple. and they still managed to get away. I'm like, really? And they're both tiny and short, and
Good for them.
it's just so crazy. What are the circumstances, you know?
Oh, God.
And so, obviously, they can't go to the hospital. They can't stop for any medical care at all.
No.
Now, I think this is the point where we kind of see Clyde's love for her, because he could have easily
left her
there, you know, but we see that he's not heartless. Like, he genuinely loves her, because he actually ended up nursing her to, like, fully recover. Jeez. Almost. And so he did everything he could to take care of her. So he, even like Blanche and Bonnie's sister, ended up coming to stay with them for a while, Billy, and she was kind of helping her too. So they were kind of hiding out. I think it was at Billy's house, actually. They were hiding there for a little bit as she's starting to get better. But anyway, back to the crash. Okay, it just happened. 2 officers come to investigate. Clyde distracts them. He's probably like, look over there. He steals their car, kidnaps the 2 officers, and sets them free after driving for 50 miles.
Wow.
And imagine the pain that he's probably like, I don't know, probably has some type of concussion or something.
Yeah.
And then Bonnie's, of course, like, has a, 4th degree burn?
Yeah.
And they're just driving in a car for 50 miles.
That's
Yeah. And so then they just drop them off. And they're like, good luck. Haha, suckers.
Wow.
Yeah. So then they headed east to Oklahoma to be with Buck. Clyde had to go to small shops along the way where there weren't many people to get bandages for Bonnie. So he was kind of risking everything just to, you know, find help for her. And he would stop at many, many places because he always made sure that, like, it was like a fresh bandage. Aww. And anything she needed, he'd get. So I feel like he has to love her. Like, I feel like there has to be, you know, obviously he loves her, but, like, I feel like that's kind of shows his loyalty.
Yeah.
Because, again, he didn't have much going for him, but it was like the 2 of them knew that they had each other, and they just didn't let go of that idea. So romantic. So, yes. He took really good care of her, and then everything started going downhill from there. So, in 1933, the federal government began its national war on crime. They're like, we got to catch all these gangsters, these bad boys. And so there were a big group of gangsters that emerged, making headlines everywhere. There were a lot of well-known criminals that were now like celebrities, like Pretty Boy Floyd was a big one. There were a ton of them.
Yeah.
And these are like a lot of them are attractive. And so the women are like, oh, I need me one of those. They probably look at Bonnie and Clyde and they're like, oh, how do I become Bonnie? Like, it's kind of interesting because Bonnie always watched movies and felt that way. But I'm sure like a lot of women watched their story.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
Yeah. It's an easy way to influence people. It's like, you know, us seeing celebrities and being like, oh my God, I want their life, even though it's horrible.
Literally.
President Hoover advocated for a stronger police force to help nervous America feel more at ease. He knows that Americans are starting to kind of freak out, and he's just like, what can I do to, you know, make them feel better? How can I be a good president? And so he comes up with the idea of like, we just need a stronger police force. That's it. That will help everything. Will it? So many are against the government still. They're like, we do not trust you. Y'all are a bunch of assholes. Like, but they're also like, help us. So they're also kind of scared. So they're like, for all these gangsters, they think they're cool, but then they're also like, oh my God, there's a lot of them. They might kill us. And so they want order and stability, but they don't want the government. And it's kind of like, that's a rough line to cross. So Clyde ends up making it on Hoover's list of wanted men.
Ooh.
He's not at the top. He's like kind of lower on the list, honestly. He's not the worst out of them all.
Oh no, there's some that are terrible.
Yeah. And so many of Dallas's federal agents were assigned to track him down. So I think there were like 35 of them. No, there weren't that many. That was John Dillinger. There were like 15 for him, I think. John Dillinger was the famous bank robber. He was at the top of the list because he was just like unstoppable. And so there were 38 agents on that case. So that kind of shows you like how much less Clyde Like, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Like, he was not at the top of the list at all. So the Barrow Gang was not at the top level, but newspapers would exaggerate what happened at different robberies and make stories up.
Media at its finest.
Yeah. And so they like want the Barrow Gang to be more popular just because of Bonnie and Clyde. Mm-hmm. So they're like, did you hear about this time they did this and then this and this? And like a lot of it wasn't even true. So, wow. But this did bring the police to be like, oh shit, we got to catch them. So it brought them up on the list.
You're so gullible.
I know. And so police spent over a year chasing them across multiple states. They knew they had to match the firepower of Bonnie and Clyde in order to stop them. On July 20th, 1933, police were armed with armor and surrounded the gang in a motel in Platte City, Missouri. And this was still Jones, Buck, Blanche, Bonnie, and Clyde. Mm-hmm. Now, I just love that Jones is just with them still. It's like, I'm in the gang for life, man. After a bloody shootout, the gang escaped. Buck got shot in the head, and Blanche was blinded by glass from a shattering windshield.
That's rough.
And she was just kind of freaking out. Like because I think it was only in one eye, and then it kind of led to the other eye becoming blind. Yeah. But she was just like going crazy. And so like a cop approached her, and she thought that they were about to shoot her. Yeah. And so she's like, oh, leave me alone. And then she ran away somehow when she was blind. So we got a cripple, we got a limp, and then we got a blind. And then...
Is Buck dead?
Not yet. He will be soon, because he just got shot in the head. Oof. He doesn't make it very long. Nah. So they're surrounded again 4 days later after they all escaped. Mm-hmm. At this point, Buck is weak. Like, they can't do much to take care of him. Yeah. And they're in this area where the press knew about them going. And they're like, this will be the day that they catch the gang. So the whole press is there. There's eager onlookers. Everybody's in this area waiting for the gang to be caught. And the police started opening fire. Clyde sees this and tells the gang to run to the river. Bonnie's like, bitch, I can't run. Did you forget? I will just have you remember that through all of these crimes, he's had to hold her as he's running.
That is wild.
I know. I always forget that part. Of like, she can't run or walk. So just imagine that image. Okay.
She's just hanging on his back.
Yeah. Buck at this point is so weak. He's trying to run. He gets about halfway and just says, leave me here. I can't anymore. And dies right there.
Damn.
Yeah. And Clyde hopped in the car. He stole a car. His plan was to like get everyone in the car, but they were all like running in different directions. He's like, guys, over here. And it was just kind of chaos. And so he steals a car, but as he's driving, he gets shot in the arm and he crashed into a tree. So then he realizes that they have one option, going across the river and swimming as fast as they can. This is a whole wild situation.
Oh my God.
So Clyde sees his brother and he's like, love you, man. It's been real. Let's go.
Oh God.
And because he knows he has to, like, even though Buck's not completely dead, he can't take care of him right now. Exactly. It's either Bonnie and getting away or death for Buck and being caught. Yeah. You know, so like, or trying to save Buck, but he's gonna die no matter what, probably. Yeah. So he decides to do what he can to save Bonnie and himself, honestly. And they end up swimming across the river. So, where's that? Oh yeah, right there. Buck gets taken as prisoner, even though he's dying, and he dies just a couple days later in jail. And then Blanche was also taken as prisoner because she's trying to help him, even though she can't see him. Yeah. And so now she's in prison. So Clyde, Bonnie, and Jones, they did end up swimming across the river, and then they got away in a car on the other side.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how they escaped that one.
That's just how they are.
Yeah.
They are speed.
Yeah. So Clyde was now taking bigger risks by staying on the road. He knew that he needed a new gang since Buck had died. He's like, we have to find someone else to join us. Mm-hmm. Like, we have to have a stronger team because no offense, but like, you can't run. And like, my arm hurts and I also can't run very well. Like, we need someone. So, and Bonnie's like, yeah, I agree. And Jones is like, yeah, I have to go. And so actually Jones escaped during all of that. Yeah. He ended up taking his own car and escaping, and they never saw him again.
Shit.
So he's like, fuck you guys, I'm out.
I'm going to Vegas.
Yeah. And so they just went in separate cars. Jones ended up being captured in November 1933. I think it was like right after that. Yeah. In Houston, Texas. So he didn't get very far. No. Because who was the one who got them away? Clyde. So Bonnie and Clyde went on together. Just the two of them for a while.
Just the two of us.
On November 22nd, 1933, there was a trap sent by a Dallas sheriff and his deputies in an attempt to capture them near Grand Prairie, Texas. But the couple, of course, escaped. They heard about it and knew to get away. News spreads pretty quick.
Yeah, it does.
And so they ended up stealing an attorney's car, which they then abandoned in Oklahoma.
Oh my God.
They never give up. December 21st, 1933, Bonnie and Clyde robbed a citizen in Louisiana.
Oh.
Yeah. Poor little citizen. That's all the information there is. I was like, okay, so I guess I'll write that down. But yeah, they ended up just living in their car still. So they would sleep at night in their car and then they would drive during the day. Mm-hmm. So Clyde heard that their mothers were now in danger. People were wanting to kill their families.
My God.
Yeah. Probably hold them at gunpoint asking where they are. Yeah. That kind of thing. Not that they can even catch them if they tried. They've already tried like 6 times. So Clyde hears about the ambush attempt that endangered their mothers. And since Jones, because now he's in prison, they've questioned him, he's given them a lot of information. Oh. So yeah, he's told them all about Bonnie and Clyde, their families and everything. So now they know kind of their path. Yeah. And they know where they go when they hang out with their family. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Jones, you two-sided little hoe.
That's why you can't trust anyone.
Exactly. So, Clyde hears about this, and he wants to seek revenge. And he tells his mom, he's like, I'm going to kill all of them. Oh! And then she's like, honey, I don't think that's a good idea. You should not kill them. And he's like, fine. So then he comes up with a better idea. He's like, you know what? I may not be able to take revenge on all the lawmen, but I can take revenge on Eastham Prison Farm for all the shit they did to me. So, in January 1934, they took part in a raid at the prison and rescued 5 inmates.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, this was his form of revenge. This would ultimately lead to their death because you're messing with the big guys.
Yeah.
The head of the prison system, his name was Simmons. He reached out to a former member of the Texas Rangers who killed 53 criminals. His name was Frank Hamer. And he told him about Clyde and what he just did to rescue all these inmates. And he's like, okay, I'll get him. And what this guy was known for is that he did not give anyone any remorse. He never gave anyone a trial. He just assassinated them as fast as he could.
Damn.
Yeah. And so Simmons told Hamer to shoot everyone in sight and trap Bonnie and Clyde. He's like, I don't care who has to get hurt in the process. We need them down. I'm like, oh my God. And then you see pictures of them and they're like, they look all serious. I'm a Texas Ranger. So yeah, this guy was intense. Yeah. He was known to be like able to catch anyone. So he ended up retracing Bonnie and Clyde's path. He caught a break in Louisiana. The family of a fugitive, Henry Metham, if you remember, I said that he would at one point be a part of the gang. Mm-hmm. That's about to happen, but not yet. He was one of the inmates who Clyde helped out of the prison. And so, you know, I already forgot his name. Frank Hamer, the bad guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. The intense guy. He came to Henry's house and he's like, hey, Henry, listen. I need you to help me out. I know you know Clyde. I need you to help me catch him. And Henry's just like, what's in it for me, huh? And so they make a deal. And this was actually, I think, his mom's idea. She's like, give me Mercy for my son, and we can give you Bonnie and Clyde. And so now Henry would get away with everything. He would never have to go back to prison, and he would help lead them to Bonnie and Clyde.
Oof.
And so he's like, deal.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to take
I know. That? And so he's going to pretend to be a part of their gang, basically, until he can help them trap them.
Undercover.
Yeah. But he ends up actually kind of enjoying it. But anyway, so he continued in a crime spree with them. And they actually did it for a while. So it wasn't like he was just going to do it the next day. Yeah. He was like, I kind of want to do it for a little bit. Like, kind of play the field.
Build their trust.
Right. And so they ended up murdering 2 motorcycle cops. And this was like a big case. Yeah. Like, this was all over the news because it's cops, you know. And so people are like, who did it? Like, I don't understand. Why would anyone do such a thing? And so there was actually, before the movies would play, in May 1934, there would be a newsreel in the beginning of the movies, and it would talk about the 2 murdered motorcycle cops and that they're looking for a man and a woman because apparently a witness saw a man and a woman. And so they're like, it has to be Bonnie and Clyde. Like, it has to be.
Yeah.
But then another witness steps forward, and they saw Henry do it. And so they were like, no, it was 2 men. I saw a man who looked nothing like Clyde shoot the motorcyclist, and it ended up being Henry.
Oh.
But Henry got away with this because of the deal.
Of course.
Yeah. So it was kind of like, oh my God.
Got a free card.
Right. My God, it was crazy. But the other witness was like, Bonnie was involved. Like, she was there because Bonnie apparently was like hitting the gun at him and saying, look at his head bounce, Clyde. I'm like, Jesus God. Christ. These people are insane. So anyway, even though Henry was the shooter, he was to be pardoned soon once he helped them get the couple. So on May 6th, Bonnie and Clyde had their last rendezvous with their family. This would be the last time they would ever see them. They ended up going to like a hidden park somewhere where they could all be together. And Clyde's parents said that they were waiting to buy Buck's headstone because they thought that Clyde would die soon. So they wanted to bury their sons together. Isn't that so sad?
Oh my God.
Like, they just lost Buck, and now they're like planning on losing Clyde any day now. And so they're just waiting. Oh my God. I know. They want to put the same headstone for both of them.
Wow.
Stop. Those poor little parents. And then Bonnie gave her mom a poem called The End of a Line about a couple on the run. And the last line says, someday they'll go down together. Or one of the last lines.
Shit.
Yeah, it's all about them. So that was their last time seeing their families. They kind of had a feeling that it was about to be over.
Yeah.
So on May 23rd, they had plans to meet Henry at his house. This would be the trap. Frank Hamer had a big posse of officers armed with automatic rifles, and they were all hiding in bushes on the highway. They're like, okay, bushes. I got my gun, I'm ready. And this was the only road that led to the Metham house. So they're like, they have to go through this road, this highway, in order to get to Henry's house. So they're like, wait a second. Clyde is really fast when he drives. How are we going to get him to slow down? And then they're like, oh, and Henry's dad was like, I'll pretend that my truck broke down and maybe he'll stop to help me. And so that's what they did. So he kind of like pulled over and was pretending to work on his truck. And, you know, Clyde knew his dad, so Clyde was cool with him and he would help him. Like, that was just the relationship that they had. Because this was a few months in, so like they'd been working together for a while. And, you know, his parents are pretending to be like supportive.
Shit.
Yeah. And so at 9:15 a.m., the car came down the road. Clyde took the bait to help out Henry's dad. As soon as he started slowing the car down, they shot Clyde in the head. And because of this, you know, he took his foot off the brake.
Yeah.
The car goes down a ditch. And then they just start shooting as much as they can.
Damn.
Now, everyone, all the cops became completely unleashed. They're coming out of the bushes. They shredded the car to pieces. Like, it was still a car, but they're like, if you, like, there's pictures.
So many bullet holes.
Yeah, if y'all want to see pictures of this, they have pictures of them dead in the car. If you want to see that, it's just there for us to all see. So, yeah, I got to see a lot of graphic photos. Anyway, so there were over 150 bullets that they found on the car alone, let alone their bodies were soaked. That's how many times they'd been shot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. They wanted to make sure they were gone for good. It's like killing a cockroach.
Good Lord.
And Hamer was like, man, I'm good at this shit. He took their guns as a reward and kept them forever.
Jesus.
Now, of course, the news spread.
Yeah.
And people even knew that this was going to happen. So everybody starts flooding this highway. And they start kind of coming around the car. Before anything's cleaned up, people are just spread around the car. Mm-hmm. And they're just staring at their 2 dead bodies.
That's so weird.
I know. I'm surprised that the cops weren't like, hold on, everyone.
Well, that's because they don't care.
No, they did not give a fuck. Like, they just wanted them dead.
Well, they saw it as like an achievement.
Right. Everyone, come take a look.
Literally.
So people started trying to take things from the car. One guy was almost ready to cut off Clyde's trigger finger as a trophy.
Oh my God.
Knowing like how many people he'd have shot with that. Someone tried to steal Bonnie's wedding ring. People were trying to like steal pieces of their clothes. And people did. Like, I'm sure that people took many things that they could find. Whether it was photos, like anything that they could find in the car.
Savage.
Just completely covered in blood. I'm like, my God. So later that day, their parents came and retrieved their bodies. A ton of people came to their funerals in Dallas. Like, there was like thousands of people.
Damn.
Yeah. Now, per Bonnie's mom's request, they were buried in separate cemeteries. She said that he took her life in life and that she didn't want him to take her life in death. And so she was like, I need them to be separate.
Damn.
Yeah. Which I get, like, he destroyed her life, you know? So I get the fact that, like, she wouldn't want him to be buried next to her. Mm-hmm. And plus they had, like, family cemeteries, so I said cemeteries.
Like plots.
So, yeah, they had, like, family cemeteries where they would have to be, like, separate. Yeah. So Hoover's group took down all of the other gangsters. They were very successful in their killing everyone thing that they wanted to do. Bonnie and Clyde weren't famous for their crimes, but their love, really. I mean, if you look at it, they didn't commit more crimes than anyone else at that time. But they were mostly known for their loyalty to each other, for their passion for each other. And just like a movie, a lot of good things end in tragedy, just like their love.
I agree.
So that was Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, now I always have to relate it to musicals because that's just who I am. There is a Bonnie and Clyde musical. I was obsessed with it a few years ago.
Oh my God.
It's so good. But then I listened to it again last night and I was like, oh, I love these songs. There's a song that Bonnie sings called Dying Ain't So Bad. And she's just talking about like how she's willing to die if they go together.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fun songs. So if you want to listen to that, go listen to it. It's a great musical.
That's wild.
And it was only on Broadway for like a few months, I think. I remember finding it a few years ago and being like, why has no one talked about this? But I do that with a lot of musicals. So anyway, that is Bonnie and Clyde.
They are a crazy bunch.
They are. They were kind of perfect together. Like
in their own weird, dysfunctional.
I don't think Clyde really changed her. Like that wasn't his goal at all.
I think he just brought out a side of her that she was always wanting.
Yeah. And I think it was just like, I don't know, like it was toxic, but also like he wasn't trying to like force her to do anything.
Yeah.
Like she wrote so many poems about how she really felt. There was nothing about him being like a bad boyfriend or anything negative about him. So like I think it was just like it was true love. They just didn't know what to do. Like they didn't have any other career opportunities.
And I mean, when you get that far into like a life of crime, like you're not gonna
get partners
get out.
For life.
Yeah.
Partners in crime.
Exactly. Literally partners in crime. So that was a good one. I like that.
Yeah, it was fun to research.
Isn't the car on display at one of the auto
I think
museums with Ted Bundy's?
I think so. I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
It's somewhere where you can go see it.
Yeah.
So just go look at the car with a bunch of bullet holes. Or just look up pictures of them dead in their car.
That's weird. Is weird.
There's videos too, because of course,
yeah,
they knew they had to capture that moment.
Exactly.
So there's videos of them just laying there. Like, my God, you people.
But good story. Where can you find us?
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at History the Podcast, or email us at historythepodcast@gmail.com.
We will see you next week for our last Love Month episode.
Love month.
Love month.
All right, we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.